and welcome to this week's News Desk. I'm Chris Stafford, and this is Season 4, Episode 18, and we're recording on Wednesday, May the 18th, a glorious day in Middleburg, Virginia. How is it over in London, Nancy?
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's also pretty nice weather over here as well. Starting to definitely get into summer vibes. Hopefully it stays like this and doesn't start raining.
Yeah, because you've got a race coming up, haven't you?
Yeah, so I'm doing a Trails half marathon the weekend after next, up in the Lake District. So ideally I kind of want no rain, but not too hot. So kind of, maybe 18 Celsius or something like that. And yeah, so I don't want to be dehydrated. I don't want to get soaking wet, but pleasant weather would be very nice. So yeah, fingers crossed that it stays kind of how it is at the moment.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. You'll let us know how that goes, of course. And you're thinking of a marathon again in the fall, aren't you?
Yeah, potentially doing maybe the Yorkshire Marathon in October. Haven't quite decided whether I'm going to do that yet or not. Definitely need to get into kind of like, I still run very regularly, but kind of lost the routine of doing it really, if you're training for something, because I've been doing a few other kind of sports and stuff as well. So yeah, I think potentially, but I think I have to consider it because obviously running a marathon is a lot of dedication.
Yeah, well, I know how that feels like, of course, having just trained for that long bike ride. And I backed off a little bit, but I still know that I've got to do like 10 to 15 miles a day and keep building that up if I'm going to do another one, which I am in the fall. I'm going to do another long ride. But yeah, I had a little bit of a break after. You know what that's like. After your big one, you have to have a little bit of a break. But I'm picking that back up to my 10 to 15 miles a day. And now that it's warmed up over here and it is beautiful weather, I've been going out at very first light to get it done while the air is still fresh. It's not too hot. Get the exercise done. But you mentioned you're doing other things as well. You're playing soccer, aren't you? Football.
Yeah, football. Yeah. Yeah, playing football again. We actually did a little tournament last Thursday. It was just like a little 7-a-side tournament with some other teams in London. That was fun. And then, went swimming on Monday as well. So,
gosh.
Yeah, very active.
Athlete, yeah.
I know, triathlon coming up.
I was thinking that too. I was thinking she's going to tell me she's getting ready for a triathlon next.
Oh, I'm not good enough at swimming to do a triathlon.
Yeah,
but
you can work on that.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, all right. Well, keep us posted here. Don't go off and do something major like that without warning us.
Yeah, well, of course, I'll keep you updated if I ever lose my mind and sign up to a triathlon.
All right, well, talking about football, we've got some major news that made the sports page. It made the headlines everywhere here this morning in the US, Nancy. So it's news that we've been waiting a long time for when it comes to women's soccer, and finally reaching a level playing field with the men.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, we've been waiting for it for a while, and then also it's something that we've known is coming for, I think, a couple of months now. But yeah, it's kind of gone by stage, and we've seemed to finally reach a conclusion. And yeah, that's the equal pay battle from the US women's football team. So yeah, I mean, this started way back in 2019 when the female players filed a discrimination lawsuit against US soccer. It's kind of, in and out of court. I think there's been quite a few twists and turns, and then they finally reached a settlement a few months ago. I think it was February that they announced they'd reached a settlement, and then it kind of all hinged on a collective bargaining agreement between the players and US soccer, and it also had to be the case that the men's players also agreed to the same collective bargaining agreement as well. So that is what has been announced today, essentially. So they have now reached an agreement So the women's team get equal pay. They are going to pool the World Cup prize money, and along with the share of television and sponsorship revenues as well. And it's not just pay as well. I think that's important to add. It's equality of kind of childcare benefits, travel and accommodation, venues. So it's all, it's basically kind of everything, every aspect of being in the national team. And yeah, it benefits the men's players as well, because the men's team now receive childcare benefits, which the women's team had for more than 25 years. So it is, like the definition of equality. Both the men and the women's teams benefit from this. And like you said, it's incredibly long time coming. A lot of other countries have given their national teams equal pay, and despite the fact the US were the most successful women's team in the world by a long way, they hadn't been getting the pay that they deserved. And yeah, it's great to see that that's finally changed now.
It certainly is. And I think, now that they can just settle down and, get on with what they do best. And, they are, and certainly I think it's arguable, but they're probably the best team in the world still. That's going to be disputed, I know, come the next World Cup. And it didn't seem that way at the Olympics, obviously. We didn't find a form, but we're still one of the top, Nancy. I mean, the reputation is there, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really looking forward to the World Cup next year, because I think because of COVID and stuff, I feel like we haven't had many matches, the best teams in Europe going up against the US. I agree. I don't quite know where the US are. Obviously still a really talented team, but it would be really interesting to see them play some European teams soon, and hopefully we'll get that at the World Cup. And like you said, it will be so nice for the players going into the tournament with the football as their full main focus. Now they've kind of finally achieved what they've been fighting for so many years.
Yeah, I think obviously create a much better atmosphere too. Whilst that dispute was happening, it was always lingering there in the background and creating, some animosity, which will all just go away now, and they can get on with the game and doing what they do best. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they produce now, and they, I think they'll all feel so much better for it. So great news, and really, as I said, it's not just making the sports pages; it's been making the front pages as well over here, because the USWNT are very, very have a very high profile here in the US. And across the pond over there, you last week we spoke. We're doing the show, and you were looking forward to going to the FA Cup final where Chelsea played Manchester City. Now, you didn't have a dog in the fight, but you told me just now that you were hoping Manchester City would win, but Chelsea got the better of them 3-2.
Yeah, I think I was definitely a neutral, but I can't, because Chelsea won the WSL title, I kind of would have liked to have seen a bit of variation. But I must say, Chelsea did win, but it was one of the most entertaining Women's FA Cup finals I think I've ever seen. It was 3-2 after extra time. So Chelsea went 1-0 up, then City equalised, and then the same happened again. And for the second Man City equaliser, it came in the very last minute of normal time. So that was very dramatic. And then, Sam Kerr, who is just constantly making headlines at the moment, she scored the winner in extra time. It was also a record attendance of 49,094 fans. And it was, when you get attendances like that, you just hope and pray that the match is entertaining to, kind of be worthy of the crowd that's there and convince people to come along to another match. And the game certainly was like that. It was really, really entertaining. Congrats to Chelsea. I think that's their second title this season after the league title as well. And they are such a difficult team to play against, being an Arsenal fan and watch Arsenal and many other teams play against them. And they always just find a way. Even though City kept coming back, they find a way to win. So, congrats to Chelsea there.
Yeah, great news for women's soccer, women's football for sure. And Emma Hayes, of course, is the Chelsea manager. Well, what's her magic, Nancy? What do you see as her magic? I don't know. I think that, there's a lot of different things. I think she's got
a very talented squad, and she knows how to get the best out of her squad. I think tactically she's just very, very, she's a bit of a genius, really. There's been times for the men's Euros last year, she was a pundit and a commentator, and she'd basically, like, during the matches kind of explain what was happening on the pitch in tactical terms, but really kind of like simplistic tactical terms so everyone at home could understand. And at that point you realise that she's basically a bit of a tactical genius. She really gets football. She knows how to win games, and I think just obviously has the respect of her players as well. So kind of it's just a bit of a dream combination at Chelsea at the moment, with a very talented manager and a very talented playing squad.
Was she a player before she managed, Nancy?
She wasn't, no. I think she played at like a amateur level, or like, when she was younger, but she got injured and then went into coaching. So she never like played enough to kind of establish herself as a proper player. But she did play herself, but was injured before that career could kind of take off. So management has always kind of been her thing. She was at Arsenal like years ago in the backroom staff. So when Arsenal women won the quadruple, and they are still the only British team to win the Women's Champions League, but Emma Hayes was actually part of the coaching team that helped Arsenal win that Champions League. So she's been in the women's game coaching for years, and that's probably another reason why it is working so well for her, because she's just got this incredible knowledge of the women's game and the players around it, because she's been involved for so long.
Awesome, yeah. Well, she is certainly the manager to follow. Congratulations to her then. Look forward to what comes next, because there's been some transfer news as well. Nancy, is there anything you particularly want to mention on the transfer stories, because that's been happening a lot since the end of season?
Yeah, some really interesting ones. I think quite a lot of players leaving Man City, particularly Georgia Stanway, who's a English midfielder, and she's moved to Bayern Munich.
Bayern Munich, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And there's a few other
2-year contract, isn't it, that one?
Yeah, 2-year contracts. There's Caroline Weir, another midfielder for City, who's been linked, I think is pretty close to going to Real Madrid. So it's very interesting to see, well, Caroline Weir is Scottish, but to see these British players going over to Europe and not playing in England, because it's something that we haven't seen too much of in women's football. It has, some players have done it, but it's been relatively kind of, that hasn't happened a lot. And I think that can, really develop players and help them grow. So I'm really interested to see how those British players that go over to Europe do. It's only, the transfer window has kind of only been open for a few days, and it's already kind of kicked off. So I'm interested to see what else happens.
Yeah. All right. Prediction here. We know that Tobin Heath, who was playing for Arsenal, she came back to the States, ended her contract there, and is back in the States. And we're just waiting to see where she goes. Any predictions there? Any thoughts on whether she'll go to one of those new expansion teams on the West Coast, Nancy, or any thoughts on that? I
think, in my opinion, she either go to Angel City or San Diego. San Diego, she's worked with Casey Stoney before, so maybe she'll be quite tempted to go back with her. I think she has praised her before and said that one of the reasons when she went to Manchester United, she went there because Casey Stoney at the time was manager. So essentially, I personally think one of those two teams. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Well, of course, Kristen Press is with Angel City, just saying, and so she would be a competitor. I know geographically very close, but that would be very interesting, wouldn't it, if she went there? But she's got to get fit first. I think she's still overcoming that injury, from what I hear.
Yeah, so I think, and I think like fitness is probably one of the bigger issues, because she struggled to get game time last season because of fitness issues. So hopefully, once she gets over it, that's it, and it doesn't kind of rear its head again.
Mm-hmm. All right, we will bring you any news that we have on that. of course, here on the news desk and at wisports.com. You can follow the links to all the stories as well. And don't forget, follow us on social media too, at wisports and at Nancy_Gillan. We'll give you all of those at the end of the show. But let's move on now to the next story we've got is actually in sailing. It's some good news for a brand new tour in women's sailing, Nancy.
Yeah, this is very exciting for sailing fans. So the World Match Racing Tour has announced that it's launching the first women's World Match Racing Tour. So that it's going to have 4 events in France, Denmark, Greece, and then the World Championships in New Zealand. So it's basically going to try and grow female participation in sailing and match racing around the world. Particularly because I think there's currently over 200 female match racing sailors on the World Sailing Global Ranking. So a lot of people that can get involved in this event, basically. And yeah, I think there's been women's match racing before, hasn't there? I think the Women's International Match Racing Series started in 2013, and I think the last title was awarded in 2019. So it's kind of continuing on from that. But yeah, great to see another sailing event launched specifically for women.
Yeah, very good news. We may hear more about that on the sailing show, so stay tuned here at WiSP Sports. We're going to move on to tennis now because it is the busy time in Europe with the hard court season well underway with the Italian, with the Spanish, so in Spain, they're in Italy, and of course it will be Roland Garros for the French Open coming up very shortly here. But there's one player who is dominating this year, and it's really exciting to see her just go from strength to strength, Nancy, the Polish player Iga Swiatek. You've been reading some interesting stats on her, haven't you?
Yeah, and she, like you said, she's just been completely dominating this year. It's currently the world number 1 after she moved up to the world number 1 spot after Ashley Barty retired. But I'm kind of disappointed now that Barty has retired, because I would have loved to see them go against each other and see who was actually, who is. I know they played in a tournament before the Australian Open, but I don't think Swiatek wasn't quite in the form that she's in now. So it would have been really interesting to see those two play, because no one else seems to be able to stop her. She's got a current winning streak of 28 consecutive matches after winning the Italian Open last weekend. And so she's heading into the French Open as a very heavy favourite. And yeah, some of the statistics are just incredible when matching or closing in on a lot of kind of records set by Serena Williams. So she's her winning streak, first of all. So she's got 28. So since 2000, she's got the 4th longest winning streak. So Venus Williams has the longest with 35. Justine Henin has 32. And then Serena Williams has 34. So Swiatek with 28 isn't too far off that. She's become the first player since Serena Williams in 2014 to win more than 5 titles in a single season. And as well, she has, I think, the first player since Serena Williams to win 4 WTA 1000 titles in a row as well. So she's really kind of like matching the dominance that Serena Williams once had in women's tennis. And yeah, so the French Open coming up next week. I think for me, obviously, yeah, Swiatek has dominated and she's been winning all the WTA 1000 titles. But I suppose you kind of, when you measure greatness in tennis and you look back at all the big names, it's always measured by Grand Slams. So I suppose she will want to start winning more Grand Slams. She's got one to her name after winning the French Open in 2020. And yeah, surely at this rate, she is definitely favourite to win this year's event too.
Yeah, very excited to watch her just go from strength to strength. Really, really fun. And as you say, records being broken, that's what it's all about, isn't it? And good to see new names too, because there's a lot of really good players on the women's side now, from different countries. There's a great diversity too, and some exciting, very young players, as we've talked about before. So yeah, let's see what she does. I wouldn't bet against her for the French Open, would you?
Oh yeah, no, she's definitely my favourite to win.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll be following that. Looking forward to it. Starts next week. Roland Garros, where Amelie Mauresmo is the manager. If anybody follows tennis, they'll know that already. I think she was during COVID. I think she took over that position. So, yeah. And also, I just want to give a shout out to one of my favourite players. Talking about the veterans, which Amelie is probably regarded now as one of the veterans, possibly. But more of a veteran is Gabriela Sabatini, the Argentinian player, who is now going to be playing in the veterans at Roland Garros in the doubles, I believe. So really looking forward to seeing that, because that's the first time she's come back, I think, probably ever. I mean, she really kept herself to herself after she retired back in the 90s. So, yeah, looking forward to that. All right, let's move on to something completely different now. And this is an Iranian weightlifting story. What's that about, Nancy?
Yes, this is about two Iranian weightlifters have basically defected and fled to Germany. So they were both competing in Greece at the Junior World Championships, and both have basically left because of the way they're treated in Iran. It's essentially two of Iran's best female weightlifters as well, so it's kind of left their team quite depleted. One of my former colleagues at Inside the Games has interviewed one of the Iranian weightlifters that has left. She's kind of revealed some of the treatment that she had. So she said she was only paid $90 in 3 years competing for Iran as a weightlifter, while male athletes received a monthly salary. She couldn't speak or mix with her own male teammates, had bad training conditions, was suspended when she complained, and then was treated humiliatingly throughout her time in the national team. If you kind of read the whole interview, she goes into more details about one of those aspects. There was kind of like really ridiculous statements made in the press. So there's a famous Iranian actor who said that weightlifting was contrary to motherhood, and that women that did it could damage their breasts and ovaries. So this was during an interview on Iran's state television. His comments kind of just went uncriticised. I think quite a sad state of affairs. The other woman that defected was the 17-year-old Yekta Jamali, who was has, I think, she's a 3-time youth and junior world champion, or medalist at the Junior World Championships. So she was a kind of very exciting young prospect. So I think it shows just the kind of how badly they were being treated that both athletes felt they needed to kind of flee to Germany.
Yeah, well, hopefully that, they'll still be able to represent their country. Do you think they will, or does this mean they've been ostracized now?
Probably ostracized, I think, but hopefully they'd be able to compete for Germany instead. That might require a change in nationality, but there's also at the Olympics the refugee team as well. So potentially maybe they'd be able to compete for the refugee team. So hopefully there are still options for them to compete.
Right. Yeah, that's a good story, very comprehensive story. And again, as Nancy said, that's at InsideTheGames.biz, and the author of that is Brian Oliver. We'll put a link in the show notes, as always, at wisports.com. Right, what have we got next, Nancy? We've got a story about Vollering Itzulia Women's Stage 1 win. What Vollering wins the first stage as organisers apologise for race director comments. What's going on there?
Yeah, so this is the Itzulia Women's cycling race. So this is the race has happened. So Vollering did win overall. I think she won all 3 stages. But organisers. So the race is basically it was the first time that this race had happened, and it's the equivalent of the men's Tour of the Basque Country. So one of the more prestigious races on the men's cycling tour. They'd finally created a women's equivalent, and it was on the Women's World Tour. But then the organizer of the race, Julian Arasso, organisers were forced to apologize after Arasso spoke to a radio show and suggested that they'd been forced to organise a women's race. So he said, we have almost been forced to organise it. This is a matter of fashion. Everyone says that you have to do things for women's sport, and it has also touched cycling. So as you can imagine, this caused a lot of uproar. And the race organisers, in their apology, said that they said sorry. They said their support and commitment as an organisation to women's cycling are unequivocal. And the organisation regrets any misunderstanding and the unease generated, and hopes that the unfortunate comments made by Arasso do not tarnish the excellent progress made by the arrival of the Itzulia Women race. So, yeah, kind of probably obviously a great occasion that this women's race has been. There's finally a women's equivalent of the Tour of the Basque Country, but really massively overshadowed by some very kind of disappointing comments from the organisers.
Yeah, very, very disappointing. Well, we have another story from cycling, Nancy, but this is an absolute tragedy. What happened to Moriah Wilson, a gravel cyclist in Texas last week. Tell us about that story, because that really is really, really hard, this one.
Yeah, very, very tragic shooting. Moriah Wilson, she is an elite racer on the US gravel and mountain bike scene. And she traveled to Texas for an event. Unfortunately was found bleeding and unconscious, and she'd been shot, and it's been ruled as a homicide. Just 25 years old and essentially just traveling to a race as well. It's just very, really, really, really horrible news. They haven't released further details of the crime. So I think it's unclear as to exactly what unfolded, but just a very kind of talented cyclist, losing her life. It's just very, very sad.
Absolutely tragic. And as you say, so young. And she was a ski racer. She grew up in Vermont. She was a ski racer before she switched to cycling. And she was regarded as a rising star in American cycling. In 2021, she vaulted onto the national scene after she finished second at the Colorado's Leadville Trail 100-mile mountain bike, one of the largest mountain bike events in the country, and then won the Arkansas Big Sugar gravel race. And she continued her upward trajectory in 2022 by winning the Sea Otter Classic and the Belgian Waffle Ride events. So she was very much a rising star in the sport, and gravel cycling is becoming increasingly popular over here. It's something I do, but not racing. I train on gravel. I love riding on gravel. But yeah, a terrible, terrible tragedy. So our thoughts with her and her family and the racing community, the cycling community. Well, our last story this week, James Haskell is somebody in rugby you may be more familiar with than I am over there in the UK. He's been accused of disrespecting female rugby players, Nancy, and he was called out.
Yeah, he was. So this is, James Haskell was a former England rugby player, pretty high profile. He does like a lot of media stuff now. And he also has a kind of, media platform for rugby called it's something like Good and Bad Rugby. And it's like a podcast and stuff like that. So they have it's the Good, the Bad and the Rugby podcast. So they have an Instagram account for this, and basically they posted a graphic listing England's most capped front rowers, but Simi Pam, who plays in the Premier 15, so is one of the elite women's rugby competition in the country, she pointed out that it wasn't England's most capped front rowers, it was England men's most capped front rowers, because the most capped women's rugby player, Rochelle Rocky Clark, who is the most capped England player of all time, men and women, wasn't on the list. So Simi Pam wrote a comment explaining this, and then Haskell replied to her telling her to have a day off. So he's been criticised for this more than the fact that he put the graphic on, not clarifying that it was England men's, because that happens a lot, and it's obviously needs to be amended, but it's can be an innocent mistake, but then telling a female rugby player to have a day off, for pointing out this mistake is pretty bad. I think people have kind of criticised him by saying, he kind of like pretends to be supportive of women's rugby, but then when it comes to it, he's putting disrespecting female rugby players and female rugby fans by kind of replying like that to a legitimate criticism. So he has, he has kind of apologized, but he's also kind of hasn't really seen the point. Like, he replied later that he says, "We have done more to champion women's rugby than anyone else. Create this show about the female game. By making a fuss over stuff like this, you weaken your point and actually set yourself back, like pick your battles and try to be positive," which I don't think quite understands the argument and like the reason why the fact he said have a day off was completely the wrong reply to something like that. So yeah, he's kind of got himself in hot water there a bit, and just shows, I think, that there's still quite a lot of work to do with people, I suppose, viewing women's rugby as equal.
Yeah. And that the men continue to be so patronising to women. It's unconscionable, and I'm glad he was called out on it. Well, Nancy, that I think about wraps it up this week, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Another very jam-packed week of women's sport.
Yeah, and what have you got to look forward to then with the soccer season over, so at least the domestic football season over there, and you're playing a little bit yourself, but what other live events are you looking forward to going to?
I suppose the Euros is probably the next big live event, and that's about 6 weeks away, but yeah, just preparing for the Euros. We've got the Women's Champions League on Sunday, which I won't be going to live because it's in Italy, but I'll be watching on TV. The French Open, definitely Wimbledon. I'm really hoping to go to some of the little tournaments that happen in England before Wimbledon, because
Eastbourne, you have to go to Eastbourne.
Yeah, Eastbourne, and then there's the one in Birmingham as well, which would be quite interesting.
Birmingham Classic. Yeah, I need
to try and sort my accreditation out for that. But yeah, in the immediate future, I don't think, unless I'm forgetting something, there's not going to anything in the immediate future, but there's a lot on the horizon, so just looking forward to that.
There's certainly a lot to watch out for, as you say. French Open starts next week, and Wimbledon will be here before we know it. Lots to look forward to. As always, here we will bring you the top stories that we pick each week at wisports.com. Whenever you listen to podcasts, just look for WiSP Sports or the WiSP Sports Desk. And follow Nancy at Nancy_Gillen. And what are your other social media handles, Nancy?
Yeah, so that's my Twitter handle, and then my Instagram handle is NancyGillen_sport. And then everything I write is on Give Me Sport Women, and our Twitter handle is Give Me Sport W.
Okay, and we, of course, at social media at WiSP Sports. So from Nancy and me, Chris Stafford, until next week, thank you for listening and enjoy your sport.